Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel for this episode 5 here on Monteith with me, Farmer Murphy. Well, it is still November. I just finished up that small plowing contract and came back and checked, and there are a number of contracts. So what I did, there are two decent plowing contracts and then one small stone picking contract. So I grabbed those, and my wife Rebecca is going to start working on those plowing contracts with the Deutz. And what we're going to do is these cultivating contracts came back in. So we're going to get set up and we're going to work on those while she is working on the plowing contracts. So that is what's going to happen. But let me get her set up and then we'll get organized and I'll show you what we're going to do with those cultivating contracts. But because we have the two tractors now, we can do things like that and work in parallel and increase our productivity and our fun. So I'll get Rebecca all ready to go here and I'll bring you back in just a few minutes. Well, Rebecca's all set up and on the go. So let's take a look at what our options are here for cultivators. And we're actually going to go with a disc harrow because they run a little faster and don't require quite as much horsepower. And we certainly want to have one that both tractors can pull. And that makes it pretty simple. It's this one here. It would be nicer to have a larger unit, but that is the only one that meets our criteria. But it's 8 meters wide and runs at 18 kilometers. So it's basically the same size as our plow. I guess it's technically 1 meter narrower and 1 kilometer slower, but it will do the job. So I'm going to get that ordered up. I did talk to Matt already. He has one of those in stock, and it'll take him about an hour to get it delivered. So I'll get that taken care of, and I will bring you back in and meet you at one of the cultivating fields. Now, I should explain, I guess, these two baling contracts are here again, but they are not a high enough value to cover the cost even of the cheap baler. So that's why I decided to do the cultivating contracts, because these 3 cultivating contracts will more than cover the cost of our cultivator. And that's kind of what the criteria is for picking up contracts right now. So get our contracts to pay for our equipment. Anyways, I will meet you at one of those fields here in about an hour in game. See you then. Well, welcome back everyone. We are at the field here, field 16. Actually, I'll show you where that is on the map. That's up here in this corner, would be the northeast corner of the map. And you will see that that is not the double disc harrow behind the John Deere. I have some explaining to do, but let's get set up on the field and I'll explain while we're going around here. So we're going to use steering assist. We'll do 3 headlands. Okay. Lower down and whoops, we are on the wrong implement. There we go. Off we go. So, as it turns out, and now I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is a map issue, that when you get a cultivating contract, we actually need to use a cultivator. Now I have done many cultivating contracts in FS25 using that exact Delbo disc harrow and not had any issues. I'm just not sure I've done any since 1.6, or I can't say for certain one way or another. So it may have been a change in 1.6 potentially, but right now I'm putting it down to the map. But as I tried to cultivate this field, we were getting no credit for it. So that's why we have a cultivator. But this is a modded cultivator and it's cheaty. Basically, it's a cultivator that has been configured with very similar properties to a disc harrow. So the Dalbo was 8 meters and ran at 18 kilometers an hour and required 180 horsepower, I believe. And this is a cultivator that's 7.5 meters, runs at 20 kilometers an hour, or has the potential to run at 20, and requires 190 horsepower. So theoretically, it should be just a little bit faster, I would think, than the Dalbo, but our John Deere can't pull it at a speed on these hills. So where the Dalbo it could. So it should end up being just pretty much the same. Now the reason I did this is because otherwise we'd be looking at basically a 5-meter cultivator running at about 15 kilometers an hour. Now, although these aren't big fields, it certainly would take considerably longer. And I'm going on the premise that this is just an issue with the map, and so I don't feel too bad about that. Now, money-wise, it was just $2,000 more, so same kind of money to purchase. So that is why we have this particular cultivator. Now, I'm sure the Deutz-Fahr, which has a bit more horsepower, would have no trouble pulling this at speed, at least on this field with these hills. But whoops, I lined up on the wrong row there. What was I thinking? Got lined up here correctly. There we go. So that's the first thing I needed to explain. The next one is, you will see we have 4 contracts up there. I made a wee mistake in accepting all of those, like both those plowing contracts and the rock picking contract. I forgot I was playing without the contract boost on, so I was limited to 3 contracts. And so I wouldn't have been able to do this contract in parallel. So what I did is I turned contract boost on so I could have extra contracts available just to get out of this quandary. Now it also gives me 10% more for the contracts, but I'm just going to subtract that out. So we get an extra $700 for this. Once the contract is done, I'll just subtract $700, so it will make us square. Now I was planning on putting the contract boost in, but not till next year in game, because my thinking was, like, once you've got yourself a bit established, you would get more contracts and you would be able to charge a little bit more. So, but I didn't want to start out with that. So I just turned it on, like I said, so we could get this contract and work in parallel. And as soon as it's done, I'll turn it off, because the plowing contract on field 1 should be pretty close to being done by then, and I'll just wait for it to finish so I can get on to the next cultivating contract. Now I did test to make sure that that wasn't the issue, the fact that I put contract boost on. I went back to a previous save before we did this recording and took a cultivating contract and tried it, and it still didn't work. Because that was my initial thought, it was turning that on that had messed things up, but turned out it wasn't the case. Now this might actually be one of the first fields we buy, because it's a pretty small field. Actually, you know what? I'm kind of curious. An arable field, that is, because we will buy some other property. Ooh, there's a big guy. Let's just look at the map here. Look at farmland. What is this one? Ooh, boy, that's still 484. Uh, so what's this guy then? Oh, 128. Okay, so that will likely be the first one arable field we buy. And that's right near where we're renting, so that works out good. I guess there's some trees around on this one, I suppose, is what makes it more pricey. Because it certainly doesn't look any bigger. But we are a little ways away from buying arable land yet, unfortunately. I think we'll be buying kind of that farm area we've driven by where you see the Quonset and the big shop. We'll likely be purchasing that before we buy arable land, just so that we have more storage space for our equipment. Because basically our barn is getting pretty full with the gear that really needs to be inside, like our powered equipment and anything that's got a tarp or cover on it that would be deteriorated by sitting out in the weather. We have some equipment sitting outside, but it's the kind of equipment that isn't uncommon to see sitting around farmers' yards. I'll put it that way. But these contracts here will certainly help us to expand our equipment line, like it already has, and sorry, pushed the wrong button there. We're going to have to rely on contracting probably for another year before we can start purchasing land. That's how much money I suppose that we could actually borrow too, but we don't own anything, so I can't imagine we could borrow a lot. Maybe 500,000. I guess enough that we could buy that one field, but then of course to do that, anything with that field, we need seeders, rollers, a whole bunch of other stuff. So I think we're destined just to work on contracts for probably next year as well. We'll see. Time will tell. Yeah, we're going to be done this before Rebecca's done her plowing, but not too far off. She's at 43%, we're at 54%. Now you may be wondering why I didn't, if I went back to a previous save, didn't I just go from there and fix the mistake I did by accepting all three contracts? And the reason I thought about it, but the reason I didn't do it is that when I went back to that save and moved ahead, we didn't get these plowing contracts and that come in that we had on this save. So, weird. Okay. Guess we gotta go like this. Yeah, so I decided to carry on, come back to this save, and take advantage of those. Basically, the $43,000 plowing contract didn't come in, and the stone picking contract didn't come in. Cultivating ones were there, and the large plowing one was there, but that was it. So it was to our advantage to come back and do it this way. Very easy thing for me to correct for the fact that contract boost is on temporarily. I might actually turn on the liming contracts too, especially with this situation we're in now. I probably could put in that small line production. Whoops, grabbed the wrong line again. Got a little... Got a little ahead of myself there. Well, I must have marked this field. We got a marker there. Must have tagged it. Didn't mean to do that. I think it might be far enough ahead too. We could buy out our rock picker, and that mean the only thing we have leased is our truck. So that would be helpful as well. Yeah, this is not a huge hillside, but you can see it's definitely heading uphill. Makes the old John Deere grunt pulling this up there. So far, Matt has not steered us wrong. Things have turned out pretty good. Because I was a little bit nervous there based on how August and September looked. But October and November have more than made up for that. But I kind of, the way it worked out, it is pretty good because in real life, like I said previously, you wouldn't, just hang out your shingle and everybody come flocking to your door immediately. It would take it a while to build up, and that's exactly the premise of not having contract boost on immediately and waiting to turn that particular feature on. But we can definitely use it because, like, this land is expensive. I mean, we got a lot of it to buy, so. Sorry about that. I had to mute you guys. Someone came in the house, and I'm sure you've heard before what an uproar that causes with the animals. Yeah, so I was saying we'll turn that contract boost on to help get our money up because otherwise we'll be here, well, a very long time with some of the land costing millions of dollars. Not that the 10% makes a big difference, but it does also ensure you have more contracts. And, really, I guess we could have used more contracts in starting months, but we only had one tractor. we were limited anyways, so more contracts probably wouldn't have done us that much good. Even now we're getting more contracts like in October, November than we have time to do. We'll need to buy another powered unit and more equipment so we can run even more processes in parallel, which we will be doing. And it does make a big difference. But even at $70,000 contract, it's going to take a long time to accumulate. Like some of those fields are over $2 million. That's quite a few contracts we got to get under our belt. Of course, once we get our own land, that will help. The other thing we keep in mind, this is row crop, so we'll be concentrating on soybeans and corn, and I guess nothing saying we couldn't buy a seeder and put in some standard crops. And once we buy the cow area, we'll have to, because we need some straw. But that seeder's expensive, and it requires a pretty good sized tractor to pull it too. That's another thing to consider. I think I can manage this row by hand. Good, we got this pretty much wrapped up here. We're actually a fair bit ahead of Rebecca. You know what? We never actually did do any in-cap in the new John Deere to take a look at it. Pretty nice machine. Fair number of hours on it. It actually has more hours on it than the old John Deere that we first purchased. But that really doesn't matter to us. Any tractors we have on this farm are going to end up with a lot of hours. I think our Deutz is almost at 20 hours. We're getting close to it anyways. Look out the back window, see how things are going. Looks like we're going to need to do one more run at least. We'll take a wide turn here and grab this longest one. So it's taken us an hour in game. almost exactly. Got it. All right. Well, I'm going to leave you guys there. Like I said, I will sort the money out so everything is as it should be. And we'll get the current contracts we have done, which I'll remind you are the 2 plowing um, and all those cultivating ones. And probably the stone picking one too. We'll get that done. And when we're at that point, I'll bring you back in and we'll see where we go from there. So we'll see you a little later in the month and we should have a pretty nice juicy bank account. So we'll catch up with you then. Hello everyone and welcome back to the farm. It is November 3rd, just after 9 in the morning. I was just waiting for it to get a little lighter out. So we did finish those contracts, the 2 plowing, the 3 cultivating, and the 1 rock picking. And that has taken our money up to 270,000. Pretty darn nice. Now I did spend a little bit and I put in that small lime production. I just stuck it back here. Now, it's small in size, but mighty in stature, because I have edited it so it holds like 500,000 liters of rock, 250,000 liters of lime. No, it's not realistic, but I modified it for this map specifically because I was getting a lot of rocks when I was playing on it, and there's no sell point or anything. So it was either do something like this or put a sell point in because I didn't want to take up a large footprint putting in a large facility. So I put that in, and so the rocks from that 1 rock picking contract are in there. Now we do have this pile of rocks we need to move over there. That may wait to spring. I'm just going to wait until either a good loader tractor or telehandler or something comes up used. I'll just bucket those rocks over. So when it comes to contracts, not a lot has happened since the first day. If we go in and look, all those corn harvesting contracts are still sitting there. They came in on the first day, and so did these 3 stone picking ones. Nothing came in yesterday at all. So we are going to accept those 3, and that's going to end it for our month. But that's okay. It was still a pretty decent month with those 2 decent plowing contracts. The cultivating ones basically paid for a cultivator, not a whole lot more. So I'm going to get those taken care of, and then we'll move into December. But what I'm going to do is the only thing I can think of that may come up in December is potentially plowing contracts on these cornfields that haven't been harvested, because I imagine the game will harvest them or wither them at the end of this month, and maybe that'll come up potentially. I can't remember if there were December contracts on here or not. Actually, I don't know if I actually got that far. But anyways, we'll find out. But if there is, it's nothing new. I will just go ahead and do those, and I will record the money so you're aware how many contracts they were and what the funds were we got, because I imagine there's only so much plowing and rock picking that you can oh, actually we should start over here, that you can watch. But even after paying our whoa, left her in reverse. Even after paying our monthly fees, we should be starting in the spring with a nice little nest egg. This is our first field here. Oops. Now I will keep my eye on the used market for any deals, so to speak, that might show up. Oh, foggy again. I'm kind of looking for a square baler. It's one thing I know I want to pick up. Now, this is a row crop ready map, but I think we can use just a standard seeder. And we are going to need to be able to put barley in or oats or something that we can get some straw off. I don't know if it'll help if I put the lights on or not. So I will be kind of keeping an eye out for maybe something like that. But I don't really want to spend all our money. Like I said, I'd rather leave it, have something available for spring. So if things like weeding contracts come up or spraying contracts or something, we'd be in a position where we could maybe buy some more equipment. So that is the plan. Now I might consider buying out the rock picker. That would be a possibility too. I think I will sit on it though for just a little bit. Like I said, really don't want to burn up all that money and then end up in spring with very little and then have to miss out on some early contracts because we can't get the equipment. Now this field is the one that will be an early arable target. This is the one that was 128,000. Now, from this field, I don't even think I'll bother putting it in the trailer. I'll just run it up to the yard and empty directly into the production right from the rock picker. Anyways, I think I will leave you guys there. I don't foresee much of anything besides plowing and rock picking in my future. So I will catch up with you in spring. Like I said, I'll have a report ready to let you know kind of the number of contracts, type in dollars. So if you're following along that way, you will know. Now that probably will mean this might be a slightly shorter episode, but like I said, how much rock picking and plowing can you watch? So if you're still with me, I really appreciate you watching. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you want to see when other content like this lands, hit that old notification bell. But for this episode here on Monteith, it's Farmer Murphy signing off.